The Cavs have a head coach. According to Woj and Shams, the Cleveland Cavaliers are finalizing their offer to Kenny Atkinson to be the new head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I like this one for the Cavs a lot. He was the guy that I wanted them to get in the first place as a basketball fan and a Cavs fan. I thought he was a good fit, and I want to start with his time in Brooklyn, where the run that he had there, I believe they overachieved. That team was rebuilding without any draft picks. The cupboard was completely bare, and he still managed to take that team to the playoffs kind of against all odds. He established a bit of a winning culture, and I think was kind of one of the catalysts that franchise was building around when they were doing things like upgrading facilities, and I think he was one of the attractive reasons that free agents like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving should want to be in Brooklyn in the first place. It's honestly unfortunate that it didn't last for him because those two guys essentially wanted him out and didn't want to be coached. At least that was the rumors back then. But this Cavs team has two players that were on that playoff team from Brooklyn that played for him, in Caris LeVert and Jarrett Allen. In that playoff year, Caris LeVert wasn't the healthiest. He only played around 45 games for them, but he did play well in that playoff series. In the 5 games that they were still alive, he averaged 21 points on almost 50% shooting. And Jarrett Allen, it was only his second year in the league, but he was already kind of establishing himself as a solid big man. He played 80 games that year, averaged 11 points and 8 rebounds, and a block and a half, which is actually the second highest of his career to date. Now, 2018-2019 was kind of a long time ago now. It's been, 5 years ago, 6 years ago? Like, it's been a while, but there's still some familiarity there, and it also might be a signal that this Cavs organization intends to keep those two guys around, at least Jarrett Allen. Now, as far as the hire itself, beyond just some familiar ties, the Cavs needed this. The Cavs played well under JB Bickerstaff. They had continuous improvement, but they had to have felt like they hit some sort of a ceiling, or that at least a change of voice was necessary for them to break through to the next level of their development that they needed to get to. Or, there's always the possibility that they just felt this was a better chance to keep Donovan Mitchell around. Either way, I think they needed a guy like this to come into the organization. This team has been clunky on offense for years now, and barring a significant roster shakeup, they were kind of headed towards being clunky again. But a guy like Kenny Atkinson, who has a reputation for player development, personally, I read that in Woj's article. I don't know. I don't have access to these teams in practice. But it's an obvious talking point around Evan Mobley, and to a lesser extent, a guy like Darius Garland, but particularly Mobley, who hasn't really shown the offensive improvement that a lot of us had hoped he would to this point, despite being a dominant defender, particularly for his age. A guy like Atkinson could help pull that out of him. And a guy like Darius Garland, who hasn't really been a development issue in terms of his playing style. The issue that I think Darius Garland has had is developing the off-ball skills to complement Donovan Mitchell since he came into town. And I'm hopeful that a guy like Kenny Atkinson could pull that out of them if Darius Garland is going to still be on the team come next season if Donovan Mitchell stays. Now, if you just look at Kenny Atkinson as a hire for the offense, if you want to infuse some movement principles into a very stagnant offense without losing your defensive identity, I think there's a lot worse places to look than the Golden State Warriors staff where Kenny Atkinson was the lead assistant. And if there's any team in the NBA that could benefit from a little bit of movement on offense, it's this Cavs team. They've so often gotten accustomed to just standing around and watching Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland play high pick and roll, or Mitchell's hero ball isolation at the end of a shot clock, or just for endless playoff possessions in a row. Somebody that's got experience with not just ball movement, but player movement in particular, I think could benefit this Cavs roster. And what I like best about that is that those Golden State Warriors teams, when they're at their best, they're also defending. They're not just running around shooting threes and playing Olé defense. When they've been winners, they've been among the league's best defensive teams as well. And if Atkinson can bring some of those offensive principles without sacrificing on the defensive end, I think he could have significant success with this Cavs group. The elephant in the room here is that the Cavs don't have the spacing that the Warriors do, obviously. So that's going to be his challenge for sure. And assuming that those big moves aren't coming, particularly with the bigs, he's going to have to figure out how to infuse some movement and spacing into an offense that plays two non-shooting bigs, which is not easy to do. It might even be somewhat impossible, at least for the spacing aspect, but I think that's where the movement comes into play. And again, of the options available, I feel pretty good about Atkinson's prospects for being able to do that. The other elephant in the room is Donovan Mitchell. And according to Shams this morning, the Cavs were feeling confident about their two highest priorities of the offseason, and that was getting Donovan Mitchell to sign an extension and getting a coach hired. And then it was reported like an hour later that they were hiring Kenny Atkinson. So that must be something that they feel good about, connecting the dots to their other top priority in getting Donovan Mitchell to sign on the dotted line and extend in Cleveland. Now, I've talked a lot about the positives and obviously some of the challenges that Kenny Atkinson is going to face. If you have any trepidation about him as a hire in the first place, it's that he doesn't have the head coaching playoff success in his resume. To that, I would say if he did, he probably wouldn't be available to take this job in the first place. And again, if you want to build experience winning in the playoffs as a coach, going to join the Golden State Warriors staff is not a bad place to get it. All in all, I like this hire. I would have been good with Borrego too, but I did think that Atkinson was a little bit better fit for this particular group. And as, again, a basketball fan and a Cavs fan, I've been watching this one. I've been wondering, are they even going to have a coach come draft day? Like, why was it taking so long? And I'm glad that they ultimately went with the guy that I was advocating for from the beginning. And when I say advocating, I mean to you, the audience, not to the Cavs, who could not care less about my opinion on the matter. But regardless, I'm happy with it, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. What do you think of the hire? Is he the right fit for this Cavs job, or would you have gone with somebody else? Let me know down in the comments.